Hello, Kuna. So, I'm going to be reviewing the article by Sydney Kidd at Boise Dev regarding the Kuna campus, future University of Idaho land donation annexed into the city. So Joe and Catherine Guido want to leave a legacy. That's what they say. They've been trying to get over 80 acres of land annexed into the city of Kuna. Upon the Guidos' deaths, the couple would like to give 53 acres of their land, located at 10 Mile Road and Columbia Road, to the University of Idaho as a land donation. As for the other 27.5 acres, the couple is requesting commercial zoning for an unspecified project. On Tuesday, representatives for the couple, which was February 20th, which is what I'll be reviewing. On Tuesday, representatives for the couple brought their annexation request before Kuna City Council, but it wasn't the first time the City Council had heard of the project. The couple had previously come to the council in June 2023 asking for annexation of the project, but were denied partly based on a high-density housing zoning request for part of the property. This time the application had changed from having high-density housing to commercial development on 27.5 acres of the property. City sewer service is not currently available on the property, and development of the commercial property would not be allowed until it could be serviced. The remaining 53 acres would be designated for agricultural and given to the University of Idaho, with a stipulation the university would have to retain ownership of the property for 100 years. This ensures the property will be used as a campus, not just sold off as revenue, the Guido's application says. It also ensures that Southern Idaho residents will have increased educational opportunities. The Guidos would like the campus to be in the city of Kuna rather than in unincorporated Ada County. The University of Idaho has satellite campuses in Boise, Coeur d'Alene, McCall, and Idaho Falls, with many more research and extension centers located throughout about the state. Councilmember Greg McPherson said just because the Guidos gifted the land to the university doesn't guarantee you of I would do anything with it. So we're going to hear those discussions in the actual video. No plan. Councilmember John Laraway said he didn't like the idea of annexing. Okay, so they're just rehashing what we're going to be hearing. Anyway, it passed 3-2 with the Mayor Joe Steer casting the tie-breaking vote. Council members Matt Briggs and Laraway voted against the motion. Okay, so if that's all you want, that's pretty much a summary. But now we're going to go into a deep dive. So, yeah. I found the actual writings, the actual minute of the packet. So I believe it's right here. And just to pull it up on Google Maps, to give you an idea, I think they said northwest corner of south. Let me actually, it says it right here. Oh, it shows it right there in the picture. So let's zoom in, enhance. All right, here. There it is. And on maps, that would be this little section here. And it looks like, yeah, they have a nice little house there, which is pretty cool. So it looks like it's this area right here that they're doing, and including some commercial zoning. And I'm not exactly, let's see if we can find it. Looks, you can see here that you have all of these different links you can download. Let me see if I can find. No, that was it. That was short. So, annexation application, adjustment, development agreement, narrative, C-2 legal description, neighborhood meeting. So I'm okay. Here's concept plan. So let's check that out. See if I can click that. Okay, so here it is. And okay, this looks to be zoning C2, and right here would be the University of Idaho on that left side, and I don't know what that blue thing is. All right, so if you pull it up on maps, so it looks like the C2 zone would be right here, and what you can see already is it's bordering Big D Ranch. The Durants, Representative Melissa Durant and her husband, I can't remember his name, they're all part of the Durant family. They have a long history, and I think I talked about they were trying to do some eminent domain with them, and they have a long history with Kuna. So now you got that roughly situated of where it is, the location. Yeah, not being close to the freeway would make it difficult for people to reach to. I don't know anything about their previous project, so let's get to the fireworks, shall we? Now you can see just how crowded this was, because even the front row is there. So let me see.
The quality.
Now, one thing is because I think of the echo or something, the YouTube video did not come up. So here I'm going to play it. I uploaded it to the Substack and it did an automatic transcription. Let's see, double speed. I'm going to see if I can boost the audio here.
Just push the base. There you go. I'm teaching. Mayor, Steer, and council members, my name is Steve Leimer. I reside at 1205 Cottonwood Drive in Fruitland, Idaho. Thank you very much for giving us the time to present something that we're very excited about to the council and folks in Kuna, and that is the potential of a charter school coming to this area to serve this community. And just to kind of set the stage here, American Classical Schools of Idaho is an entity that is really a 501c3 non.
Okay, we're going to have to go back to that one. Let me see here. Cottonwood. Let me see if I can find what Cottonwood. There we go.
I reside at 1205 Cottonwood Drive.
Oh, okay. So I guess.
Thank you very much for giving us the time to present something that we're very excited about to the council and folks in Kuna, and that is the potential of a charter school coming to this area to serve this community. And just to kind of set the stage here, American Classical Schools of Idaho is an entity.
Sorry, I'm not sure why they're talking about. I don't think I saw that in the. Cottonwood Crossings?
That is really a 501c3 nonprofit put together to incubate more schools like we have in Fruitland, which is Treasure Valley Classical Academy. And our schools are Hillsdale College K-12 charter schools. A charter school is a school that is tuition-free and open to all students, all students within the attendance zone, in fact, beyond the attendance zone, that are interested in this model of education. ACSI is governed by a board of directors and staff to support the schools coming to life. So I'm going to just tell you a little bit about this quickly, and then if you have any follow-up questions, you're certainly, I'll entertain those. These kinds of schools have shown success nationally and locally. Locally, I mentioned Treasure Valley Classical Academy, a little bit more about that in a minute. We couldn't do our work without national and local partnerships. So the local partnership would be familiar to most folks in the room. This is Bloom and the Albertsons Foundation. The J.A. and Catherine Albertsons Family Foundation has contributed tremendously financially to help the startup of these kinds of schools. Hillsdale College, some people will be familiar with, provides the curricular and pedagogical expertise for us to be able to offer the kind of curriculum that we can offer. The other things you see on that slide on the left.
All right, I think this is maybe regarding the Valor. Some other thing. All right, so they just.
I make a motion that we approve Resolution R0-2024, R05. Oh.
All right.
Now I make a motion that we approve Resolutions R04-2024, R05-2024, and R06-2024.
Second. Motion is made and seconded for approval. Is there any further discussion on that motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? And that motion carries. And that leads us to case number 2307AN and 2303DA, Cottonwood Crossing. Doug Hansen.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. For the record, Doug Hansen, Kuna Planning and Zoning, 751 West 4th Street. The application before you this evening requests to annex approximately 82.20 acres with A agriculture and C2 area commercial zones at the northwest corner of 10 Mile and Columbia Roads. The east parcel fronting 10 Mile Road is proposed to be approximately 27.52 acres with a C2 zone. The west parcel, totaling approximately 54.19 acres with an agriculture zone. The proposed agriculture zone lands will be donated for a University of Idaho endowment. The University of Idaho will take possession of the property upon the settlement of the Guido estate, and they must maintain ownership of the property for at least 100 years. Tonight's request is for annexation and development agreement approval. The applicant is not proposing development of the site at this time. In the future, with any development proposals, the applicant will be subject to all development requirements, including the dimensional standards as they appear in Kuna City Code. Staff has reviewed the proposed annexation and development agreement request for compliance with Kuna City Code, Idaho Statutes 50-222, 6765, and the Kuna Comprehensive Plan. And should the council approve the annexation and development agreement this evening, staff recommends the applicant be subject to the proposed conditions of approval as outlined in the report. I will stand by for any questions.
Questions for Doug?
Not at this time for me.
Okay. And is there anybody else who needed to present?
Good evening, Elizabeth Kekkeritz with Givens Pursley, 601 Bannock, Boise, Idaho. On behalf of the applicant, with me here tonight is Dave Crawford, the engineer. Unfortunately, the Guidos could not make it tonight. It also sounds like our presentation did not make it into the packet, so I'll be winging it a little bit more than I like to, but we'll get through this. First, I want to thank Doug Hansen and the rest of the development team for their assistance on this application. This was before you about 6-8 months ago. There were some concerns with it, with the residential component of it, of some high-density residential zoning along 10 Mile. So the Guidos took this back, they reworked it, they thought through what would really work best for the city, still continue to work well for their future estate planning purposes, and so we're back here today with this option. If you remember, we'll just look right here, we're at the corner of 10 Mile and Columbia. This and Columbia. This is slated to be in the future a very busy intersection. Is there a picture of the future land use map in here? Let's try this one. Land use map in here. Let's try this one. So if you were to look on the future land use map, this property is designated mixed use, which provides that there should be at least two separate uses on the property. The property directly to the south is across the road is also designated mixed use, and the property across the street has been designated commercial. So it is anticipated that as the city of Kuna continues to grow, that this area will become sort of a commercial corridor, much like the highway coming into town now with the interstate exchange. This is just going to continue to get busier and busier in the future. The site is approximately 82 acres, and it is currently being used for agricultural purposes. The Guidos intend to continue to use this for agricultural purposes going forward. Right now, the Guidos, they are requesting that the 27 acres that are on the hard corner, that those be designated C-2, which is your area commercial zoning designation, and that the rest remain agriculture. One thing that was important to them was that, and it seemed like it was important to this council, was that we come forward with an option that did not allow future residential there. And if there were to be future residential, that there'd be a lot more hoops that the Guidos would need to jump through, or whoever owns it eventually in the future. And that was one of the things about the zoning designations that were selected, is agriculture means it's really the most limited of all of the various zoning designations within the city of Kuna, and they can only build one house on these remaining 54 acres. As far as what is allowed in the C2 zoning, there is absolutely no residential allowed whatsoever. So if in the future someone wanted to put residential here, which quite honestly doesn't make a ton of sense, and looking at this being such a commercial corridor, they would have to come back and get a rezone for the property. One of the things that the Guidos are proposing is a development agreement, and so that really can also ensure that the property is not used for purposes that are not something that the city really sees in the future, and that the city does not, and that they're unable to develop it until the sewer services, until all the services really are extended to this area. With the commercial, it is a larger portion. It is 27 acres, sort of along that whole front stretch of the road. That would likely, given the size of it, any development that goes in there, they're also going to be looking at doing, probably having to do a subdivision plat for multiple parcels from multiple owners along there. One of the benefits with this being zoned commercial in the future is that it doesn't have the same effect on schools as other uses, but at the same time, you're going to get major road improvements. Anyone who is going to develop this property in the future is going to have to expand the road at this point in time to a 3-lane road, which will help alleviate a lot. It'll put in a center turn lane. One of the issues that has come up several times in the past is getting in and out, because the Durants, I think it's Big D, they still have a very active agriculture operation there. And so by having that 3rd lane, that will really help alleviate a lot of that traffic as this does start to develop in the future. One of the things with the annexation is that it really does, there's a lot of benefits for this. A big one being this puts Kuna in the driver's seat of what ultimately happens to this property. You have a whole lot more say over it when it's within the city of Kuna, when you start collecting the additional tax dollars on it. And it's also something that the Guidos have been longstanding residents, albeit right outside of the city limits of Kuna, and they want their property to be part of it, and it gives them certainty going forward with their estate planning. If you were to talk to them, they would certainly say, we're not intending on dying anytime soon, but eventually when we do, we want the certainty of knowing what's going to happen to our property, and that they are really big agriculture proponents, and that was the really big purpose behind looking at the University of Idaho, providing this property to them, but also making it contingent on the fact that it has to remain with the University of Idaho. They can't just, with the estate planning process, turn it around and sell it for a huge large lot subdivision right there. It's really going to have to stay and remain some sort of agricultural use going forward. It's hard without my slides. This does meet many of the comprehensive plan goals of the city of Kuna, including ensuring that land is used to support economic development. It's supporting the development of a skilled, talented, and trained workforce. You'll have the ability to attract, encourage businesses along this area when it's time for this area to develop. You're planning for the expansion of this area. This is how it's designated on the future land use map, so it is intended at some point to be growing this way. I have multiple pages of all of the economic goals. It's attracting opportunities for higher education to the area, varying educational and technical opportunities. And it allows this area to ultimately be developed. And importantly, it just doesn't allow that residential development, which has really put all the pressure on the schools, which has just really recently created a lot of the issues that have been surrounding development. So it puts Kuna more in the driver's seat. It allows the Guidos certainty. We have reviewed all of the staff report. The Guidos are in agreement with all of the conditions of approval, and with that, we would request your approval tonight.
Okay.
I'll stand for any questions.
All right, so first up, we got the Durants.
Mayor, council members, Richard Durant, 7592 South 10 Mile Road, Meridian, Idaho.
Remember, he lives right across the street, and he has numerous issues previously with the city, long history. So So here we go.
As was referenced, I mean, we live across the road, and I attended the neighborhood meeting, talked to Joe Guido about this, and definitely there was a lot of concessions made. Still concerned of the purpose of annexing when we don't have a plan. I know that we'll be able to have the opportunity to testify at some point in the future when they want to, in my opinion, change some other zoning
That's
designations. So
subtitles.
my concern is, I mean, where does C2 get to in the future, and how does that affect me long term? So with that, I'd stand for any questions.
Okay, questions for Richard?
No, sir, thank you, Richard.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you.
Thank you. Robert and Christie, did you wish to testify? Then Danielle, you're up.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Danielle Horace, Kuna School District, 711 East Porter, Director of Strategic Partnerships.
So she works with, she's hired by the Kuna School District to like speak at these kinds of things and give the school district's point of view.
So you heard Elizabeth say that we are having capacity issues at Kuna School District, and I know the 5 of you are very well aware of that. Our population of students are outpacing our buildings, our classrooms, and our teachers. So big picture, we need to get really good, really quick at communicating clearly to all of Kuna that we need to pass a bond in May so that we can build more schools, and we need to do this quickly. So everything you heard from Elizabeth is absolutely right. And I did testify in opposition to this development previously, and I am now testifying in support, and I really appreciate the changes that were made. I testified against the high-density aspects of this development because we just don't have the capacity to serve the students generated from this growth right now. So that was the reason for my other opposition, but the shift of removing that changes everything for us. In fact, the focus on commercial is such a relief for Kuna School District, because what this does is this provides tax reductions for us, so we can build schools at a cheaper bond amount because of the commercial. So we're really happy.
So remember the Boise Dev article, they had previously came up to this, but they had high density residential. Now it's just commercial, C2.
That this will come in and alleviate some of the pressures that our moms and dads and our grandmas and grandpas are telling us that they can't pay for. So this makes that price tag go down. So with this revision, I want to say that we support this and ask for your approval, as it really does reduce the burden on taxpayers and helps to build our much needed schools. I think I might have a minute left, so I want to say one more thing, is that there is I want to give just a short history of our work on why I show up as just to orient folks. So a year and a half ago, our Kuna School Board of Trustees created a policy requesting for fair partnership with developers. The belief is it shouldn't just rest on our taxpayers. We believe that. They heard from all of the patrons that we needed to come to this table with everybody paying a little, so not one entity pays a lot. So this new policy that was created just about 2 years ago allows me to work and partner with developers to ask for mitigation voluntarily, to say things like, hey, maybe you can give us the land, and then we only have to ask the taxpayers for the school building. That cuts quite a bit of the fees off. We met with the City Council as well as Building Contractors Association, and I want to share an update that through the course of that meeting, they asked that the school trustees, they proposed in a letter, and all of you can look at this, this was in the school board trustee meeting last week, and they said, we'd really like it, and we ask that you don't go to these meetings, you don't testify in opposition. And in exchange for that, we'll provide you some dollars so that you can get your bond passed. So I want to just read to you this, that in the last Tuesday meeting, one of our trustees says, we discussed the mitigation fees and what they look like, and we believe the Kuna School District is within the legal parameters for asking developers for this. It won't build schools on its own, but it certainly will cut down on the amounts. And then we as a board decided that we will continue our efforts, which means we don't accept the money. So I want to give you that update, and I invite you as well as others to look and listen to what was said with the trustees so that we have a full understanding of what we're doing. So thank you for your time.
Very good, thank you. All right, anybody else wish to testify?
Mr. Mayor, we have one more.
Another
Another gentleman.
Okay.
Okay.
C1 is our neighborhood commercial use, so that's something you see on more local neighborhood level commercial uses. C2 is service.
For the public, could you explain the difference for C2, C1?
There was that one gentleman who gave a public quote or commentary, but I'm just skipping it. I didn't really see much.
We're hearing a lot of the C1, C2, but what does that mean to the public?
C1 is our neighborhood commercial use, so that's something you see on more local neighborhood level commercial uses. C2 is service commercial, where you can see anything from local commercial uses to grocery stores to gas stations, anything with the exception of more heavy duty intensive commercial uses, service type commercial uses. And for the and as a point of clarification, no residential can be placed into any type of commercial use in the city of Kuna.
Thank you.
I have a question, Mr. Doug.
Go ahead.
Was this, before it was changed to mixed use, was it C2, before we updated the map?
For the record, Doug Hanson, Planning and Zoning, if you give me just 1 second, I can look at that. So at this point in time, if the property were annexed under development agreement, they would need to come back not only for a zone change, but also to modify the development agreement as well. And through the modification of the development agreement, since that's between the applicant and or future property owner in the city council has more discretion in their decision making as far as zone changes and things that they would like to see.
Okay, next question. On a, well, let's see, on a development, I guess we'll call it that. Is it common to have, where this has been before several times now, I don't know where the neighborhood meeting was the first time, but the second time they held it at their residence. To me, that seems controversial that people that are in opposition to this are now going into someone's house to tell them they don't like this and what they're doing, you know what I mean? Like, is that a common thing? Obviously, it's okay, they did it, but.
Holding neighborhood meetings on site is very common.
Yes, it's very common.
Okay.
You have anything? John?
No, I just, I know that Guido's, it means a lot to them to get their legacy there with this endowment, and they've gone to a great deal of effort and expense to get this brought forward. I think this is probably as clean as they can possibly make it to address all the concerns that were brought up the first time. I appreciate the effort that they've put into it.
I make a motion that we close the evidence presentation and move to deliberation.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any further discussion on that motion?
Mayor, Mark Bybee, City Attorney, I just want to make sure typically don't we give the applicant a rebuttal opportunity. I don't know if we did.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. No, I did not. Would you like to?
Elizabeth Kekritz, Givens Pursley. I do agree with how Doug explained the issues with the steps that you have to go through to amend the development agreement. Also, sort of the different uses between a C1 and a C2. That the C2 is a more intensive use, but it's not the most intensive of the uses. Also, one thing, if there are particular uses that would be allowed in the C2 zone that the City Council finds particularly not appropriate for this area, if those are discussed, they would be happy to include those within the development agreement. That those sort of uses would not be allowed on this property. And with that, I'll stand for any more questions.
All right. Any further questions? All right. Thank you.
4 weeks ago, I think it was, the property on Meridian in Ardell. There were very limited things we could do compared to annexation. I don't know if I really like annexation without land. That makes me a little, I don't know, a little nervous just for the same reasons that we had people testify. That what's going to prevent from coming back in on this 27 acres coming back in
When you see that, it's just, I guess it's failing to pick up the subtitles. Just ignore it.
a year and requesting a high density rezone.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
It kind of reminds me of the curve when that one company tried to come in and make it all commercial, but they had no plans. And it really bothered everybody about, what's going to be there? Well, this thing. What is this thing? Oh, we don't know yet. So they were trying to bring that in without really any substance to the plan. There was no plan. The comment that Councilman Biggs brought up about bringing this back, say 2 or 3 years from now, there's probably going to be different councilmen on there that will see things different than us. So I understand what you're saying, and I agree that something like this is going to have to come back if there's going to be any change. I just worry that the lack of substance of what is going to be there is probably my concern.
Yeah, I do. So obviously there's pros and cons to the changes they've made since we saw them last, which was June 6th, I believe. I looked up last night. The school endowment thing, the way it's worded now, basically like after they're gone, it'll get turned over and then they have 100 years to do something with it. While, and I think that's great, if you look across the state and all the ground that's been given to the university versus how much of it they've actually done something with, that's kind of, the jury's out on that, whether that will ever make something good or not. That's my opinion on it. But, I mean, it's not the facility size to do like the Farmer Research Center or what they do down in Magic Valley with some of the stuff down there. Maybe they'll do a different caliber, but as was testified to last time by first the applicant and then both of the Guidos, all three of them said something different. And so, and maybe they just really don't know for sure what the OI will do with it. I guess that's in their hands once it's given to them. But the flip side too is Mr. Guido stood there and said, well, I'm not a developer, whatever, but yet he's presenting the development to us. As stated by Mr. Brown earlier, who developed the subdivision directly to the west of this project? Joe Guido did.
Yeah.
So to say he's not a developer, but he keeps pushing to try to bring developments forward, I guess I have some reservation there. I think the project's a lot better now than what it was, don't get me wrong. The high density next to the Big D facility was disastrous. I mean, with the amount of traffic that just goes into that facility that's been there for decades and doing the good service they do for the community, it would hamper their lifestyle drastically. This is a much better change, for sure. I just still have some reservations that they won't immediately come back or in a year or two. And again, we have the ability to squash its own change or modify it to the way we see it best, but I just think that's the angle they're taking from, I'm not a developer.
Well, I was thinking, I mean, there's, like you said, both up and down, or pros and cons, but we've had 2 developments that came through recently with the rezone. We had one that we did deny a couple of weeks ago because of, we had lack of sewer schools, all that stuff that was going on. But then we had one a couple of weeks prior to that, which was a rezone that we couldn't deny, even though we have legislative authority of rezones and annexations. We were stuck. We couldn't change it. And I think that we shouldn't end up in that same position, whether it be us or someone else down the road.
Yes, Mark.
Mark Bybee, City Attorney. So just from a legal perspective, the development agreement is a significant addition on that issue, Councilman President Bruce, because, and it's a negotiated agreement, they don't just have a right to come in and say, we get to change the development agreement. Specifically, what they've committed to in this development agreement is C2 zoning, and which means C2 development. So if they're to come forward later, they'd have to persuade the council that they should be entitled, or not even entitled, that the council should agree to amend this development agreement to allow something other than C2. It's not just, go through code and say we satisfy the requirements for a rezone. They have to also convince this council that it's a good practice and a good decision to deviate from what was originally committed to in the development agreement here, if that makes sense. So I think what you're getting at is kind of concern about lack of discretion for the board, lack of ability to deny. And with just a straight rezone, I get that more with the development agreement. That's a negotiated agreement. They actually have to get you to move off your spot in negotiations.
So it would be the rezone and then also the update to the agreement.
Yes,
So we'd have multiple layers of.
Yes, because the zoning is committed to in the development agreement. That's like when you look at the concept plan, it's assigned, it's the zoning that's going to be assigned to the different parts. There's ag on a big part, and then on the corner there is the C2. And so if they wanted to come forward later and rezone and do something with something other than C2 development on that hard corner, they're going to have to convince you to amend your development agreement, not just come and seek only rezone because the zoning is tied to the development agreement.
So if we had this project come back before us and they had all the services were met, we could still say no, not to update the development agreement, not run into a lawsuit issue.
People can get creative on suing you, but as far as can you deny development agreement amendment? Yes, you can deny development agreement.
You see what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, they're always concerned about litigation, but the development agreement is a negotiated agreement, and you don't just have a right to change it.
Thank you, Mark.
And that's what I see as our safety. Development agreement. I think that's kind of the staple that holds together what you're talking about here tonight. And,
I mean, I see
can't just come back and do what they've done before.
I see the value in the commercial. I do see what you're saying about the University of Idaho as well, but those are kind of all my questions I had.
And if University of Idaho doesn't do anything with it for 100 years or whatever, I guess that's ag land preservation. Right?
You have a motion?
I still want the annexation on the plan, but I also don't know if we should ask for the Guidos to be here to speak. If they would be interested in doing that, because if there's more to think about with this one, I guess I wouldn't be opposed to that, but I still go back to the limitations between rezone, and annexation.
Yeah.
I mean, I totally understand what Mark is saying, but I still think we have those limitations in place, that we are still severely limited on what we can do at rezone, as long as they meet all the requirements. We're still severely limited compared to what we can in annexation.
And it'd be nice to know what, or an idea what's going there.
Absolutely, and that's my first thing. Is this just going to afford, just like Councilman Blair was talking about, the CUNA curve?
Yeah.
Again, Mark, by city attorney, I'm going to couch it this way: is it not so much concerned, like you don't not knowing what's going there, but that there's certain things you don't want to go there. Is that kind of what the council is? Is there development types, commercial projects that you don't want there? Because the applicant has represented, they'd be willing to amend this DA and the conditions of approval to include, prohibitions on certain uses. So is it, and you don't know, but is there certain things that you don't want to be there? Does that make sense?
Well, I think too that might take more of the people that live around it, right? Their input.
The ranch right across the street.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, I think, Mark, from just my point of view, I don't know what's going to go there. That's the emptiness I have. I'm just looking at 27 acres. It's going to be commercial, but
a car lot.
how many buildings, where are the plans, a plan?
So, Mark Bybee, city attorney, again, even if there was a plat concept, you still wouldn't know the users. Users on commercial properties, they come in, they'll purchase them later. It's like having the plat doesn't tell us the
You're
users.
misunderstanding. If they had a plan that we're going to have a building here, building here, building here, and this is what it's going to look like, that's fine. I don't care. Well, I shouldn't say that. I don't have a preference what goes into those buildings after we approve what we do, because that belongs to the landowner and the developer.
Councilman Laraway, if I may, for the record, Doug Hanson, Kuna Planning and Zoning. Generally, when we look at all of these preliminary plats with commercial zoning, there never is a plan of the number of buildings or types. That's why we have a official height and area standards table for the dimensional standards that can be utilized by commercial businesses, and why we have a land use table to dictate what types of land uses go there. Generally speaking, with a project like this, they would have to come back for preliminary plat approval to subdivide the commercial land further, and they would need to go through design review with the Planning and Zoning Commission on the types of uses that they would like to place there. Unfortunately, we don't get the luxury of knowing what types of commercial users will come on board.
Why would they come back for more approval? You already got 27 acres of C2. What is there to divide?
They would need to subdivide the overall 27.52 acres in order to make buildable lots. They would need to establish easements, right-of-way dedication, and generally one user isn't going to come in and utilize all 27 acres. That would be a substantial commercial
That
use.
makes sense. Thank you.
Doug, so how does that differentiate with the commercial that was going in at the corner of Lake Hazel and 10 Mile? The little commercial when we approved about a month or two ago? I'm sorry, I forgot the name of it.
Hazelcrest Estates? Yeah, so Hazelcrest Estates, you approved the zoning and the preliminary plat layout. We still don't know the users that will be going in there. We have an idea of the type of commercial that will be coming or size, but we don't know the users. They'll have to come back to the Planning and Zoning Commission for design review approval and potentially special use permit approval depending on the types of uses.
I don't want to speak for you, Councilman Harwood. I think that's why we're being, that type of design.
The design picture.
An idea, yeah.
Well, and it's like I think what Walmart's 4 acres, 5 acres, right? Is that neighborhood commercial? Something that size? Is that under the same? No.
So this, for the record, Doug Hanson, Planning and Zoning, I can't tell you the specific acreage of all Walmarts, but generally something like a Walmart is what you would see in area commercial or service commercial C2 or C3. That's generally not a neighborhood commercial type use, a superstore.
Okay, that's fine.
Mayor, Council, if I may speak to this, we're getting a little bit into my wheelhouse, so I'm going to pipe up. I think something that's important to consider as you're looking at this application, and we're kind of getting here and beating around the bush on it, but just very specifically putting it out there, it is nearly impossible to market for commercial users without commercially entitled property. The process is a little bit different than a residential developer with applications that you're used to looking at, where the residential developer already has a stated interest in the ground when they bring the application forward to you. Commercial development rarely works that way. The commercial developers are usually developing property to operate a business. The real estate part of it is a necessary evil. It is not how they make their money. So I think when we're talking about if our goal is to bring business and increase our commercial tax base, that having an inventory of available commercial property is critically important. And kind of as Doug and Mark were speaking to, coming forward with that preliminary plat, especially on a property that's on a thoroughfare, the way this one is set up, there's ability to shop it to a few different kinds of users, and having it more of a blank slate and allowing that first anchor tenant to come in and be the one that kind of sets the stage for how the rest of the out parcels will go around it is really how this type of property and that kind of property division makes most sense in standard commercial real estate development.
Thank you.
Councilman McPherson, you brought up something that I didn't hear, but I wonder where you got it from. You're saying that the Guidos are developing this property?
No, they developed the subdivision to the west side.
I
Myers.
Yeah, I remember
Back
that.
when it was, yeah.
Hold on 1 second, Mr. Mayor. Hold on.
And then really, I mean, if you don't do this, it's because they might come back in a year, they still might come back in a year. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not, the development agreement gives us some more teeth beyond the annexation part, but I think it's just gonna keep coming. Something's gonna have to happen, and based on what we've looked at over the past several months anyway, this seems to fit better than anything we've done so
They
far.
did take all the high density.
It's not high density, it's not high density apartments and that type of thing, so.
And this adds commercial without the adjusting the 95.5, right?
May I ask another question for clarification? You, during this process, they said that once this commercial is approved, the rest of the property goes into the University of Idaho endowment?
For the record, Doug Hanson, Planning and Zoning staff, that's correct.
So it isn't in there now?
So that would probably be a better question to answer for the applicant, as they're the ones who are specifically working on the endowment agreement.
I think from what I understood from everything I read was that happens after they pass away, and then it's part of the.
Yes, that is correct. Upon the settlement of the Guido estate, that is when the University of Idaho would take ownership of the land.
So not to be the devil's advocate, but down the road, somebody could change the mind of the family, and that endowment land would go away and become whatever.
For the record, Doug Hanson, Planning and Zoning, as the endowment lands are a subject covered within the staff report, and it will be in the FCOs and make its way into the development agreement, should that land deviate from being University of Idaho endowment lands, a modification to the development agreement would be required to occur.
Okay, thank you.
And was that not a 99-year deal?
100.
If it goes in.
So I'm just going to say something here which I just thought of, because it's not until they die, right? So what if you, and maybe they talk about this, the land of the Idaho thing. So what if they just develop the commercial thing over the next 10, 20 years, and they don't die? I don't know how old they are. And then I guess change their mind about the Idaho portion. The allotments or the designations for the commercial side may have already been set. So I guess that'll be something that'll be interesting. I could probably reference this video. We'll see what happens as they're not going to wait till they die before they develop the C-2 zoning. So yeah, just something I thought of.
You got a motion? What do you think?
We've never had an agreement where we have to come and reevaluate, I guess. I don't know how binding, I'm just curious how binding it is. Because it just seems like they just come right before us, we just tear it up and do a new one. I honestly don't know what the process is, but.
For the record, Doug Hansen, Kuna Planning and Zoning, are you referring to how binding a development agreement would be with this particular property?
Well, we were just talking about, they have to come back before us. How easy is it to one meeting to tear it up and we just run a new one?
So a development agreement modification would be required to go through the same channels that the creation of the initial development agreement would. So it would still need to come back forward before before the city council, and a public hearing would need to be held. Mark Bybee, city attorney. As far as criteria, it's a contract. It requires a meeting of the minds. Like that's what the basis of the contract is. And the purpose of a development agreement, if you're unfamiliar with them, the way I kind of explain them in a simple layman's way is that it's like you're writing special law for this parcel. Some of them can be very particular in the special laws you might be writing for the parcel because it gets recorded against the property. Somebody that purchases or acquires a property that's subject to a development agreement, this is something that's going to show up in their title reports. They're going to receive notice of the development agreement through that. And so it's conditions you are allowed to place on the development unique to the property, and it runs with the land. It binds future owners, all those kinds of things. So how easy is it to amend? I guess it really comes down to how willing the council would be to change their mind from what they did in the original development agreement. Because that's really what it comes down to. Have circumstances change such that C2 is no longer the right thing, and does the city agree to this, or are they sticking to where they were at? Has their position not changed? I'd have to persuade you that your position on what this should be should change.
Okay. I guess the short of it is it's going to add the commercial without the residential. If they need to change it, they'll have to come back to us anyway. And then when they pass away, it'll put the land, the agricultural stay. What's the property across the street, the Durants, is that?
They're directly to the east, yes.
What's that zone? Is that industrial?
It's county ag.
County ag? What do you want to do, guys? What do you think?
I guess it's going to keep coming back.
Yeah,
They'll do something, and I think they've done everything to pacify the requests that were made the last time it was here. I think they've gone to a great deal of effort and expense to bring back something that would be agreeable to, mainly so that they can get that endowment again, and that's been their main goal from the beginning, as far as I can tell. So.
And if you look at ACHD's plan, that's going to be a corridor anyway, 10 mile. And we don't have the commercial can add to the tax base, it will offset some of the residential.
May I ask Doug another question?
Yep.
I'm just trying to work myself through this, and I do it differently. If the totality of the property now, 27 acres being commercial and
55.2.
55 being agricultural, my biggest concern about like this stuff is I know what's in front of me, and that's the commercial. This other 55 acres has me worried. Do we have to annex both pieces of property? Can we annex just the commercial? It's already split up and divided anyway.
Mark Bybee, city attorney. So in this application, no, you can't just annex only part of it. They submitted an application for the entirety of it, and so the applicant would have to be willing to modify their application significantly from what it is to actually be able to do that. So you either approve or deny the application in front of you. You don't modify the application. It has to be the applicant's decision because it's their property.
I think we've been heavy with residential lately, right? The impact on the schools, the taxes. I mean, this adds commercial to it. It's going to be a corridor, main corridor anyway in the future. If they have to change it, they have to come back to us. Right.
And, I mean, as reluctant as I am to jump on board with this, I think the mayor's right. It's only been 8 months since they were here last. We're just going to see it again and again and again.
They're retired anyway.
Well, yeah.
They're just sitting at home.
Like John, man, nothing better to do than bug me.
Sitting at home, bring it back.
So just reviewing that development agreement, whatever I was saying, that'll be pretty risky since it appears it'll be right in the exhibits regarding the use of the land, so they would be in breach of their development agreement. I would not want to be the commercial landowner at that time when they're in breach of
Matt,
that
do you have anything
agreement.
else? Councilman Lorway? Did anyone have a motion?
Mark, just a quick point of order on your motions. Because of the nature of the application, if it's a motion to approve, it needs to be on all applications. If it's a motion to deny, it only needs to be on the annexation. That's because if you move to deny on annexation, you don't have jurisdiction on the other applications because the land never came into the city.
All right. I make a motion we approve case number 23-07-AN and 23-03-DA.
Okay, you have a second?
Very good. Yeah, we'll second that.
I mean, if you don't, it dies, and then we can just move the other direction. I was just trying to get a feel for everyone, trying to move this thing forward.
No, I get it.
Just a meeting,
We
not
have the
the...
control layer to not do a rezone on the C2. I feel confident in what our staff and attorney have said about the legalities of them trying to change it without very in-depth, meetings and whatever. like American continually said, it's going to come back if we, and we have them in the development agreement. We have ironclad that this is what it's going to do. We don't know who's going to do, but we know what it's going to do. And it's commercial, and it's not all the apartments and whatever right out the front door. So I do like that. That was huge in my book anyway. Maybe not as much as others, but.
I mean, I could go either direction. Okay.
Okay, we have a motion and a second?
Yes.
All right, any further discussion? Nathan, I'm going to let you go ahead and poll council.
Councilmember McPherson?
Yes.
Councilmember Biggs? Councilmember Laraway?
Nay.
Council President Bruce?
Aye.
We have a split vote, Mayor.
And I will vote aye. That motion carries.
Okay, so I think that's pretty much it for this one. Yeah, I mean that pretty much covered the whole thing. Yeah, there were a lot of people, or there were, I don't know if people just normally sit in the front. I mean, normally if I if I show up, I'm going to be in the back. But anyway, yeah, I was surprised there wasn't as much public discussion as I thought. Maybe because there's no high density residential. So that's it. It's going in or regarding the C-2 designation, and then 100-year possession with the University of Idaho. If they end up doing anything with it, who knows? But there is an issue of on what grounds they would deny it in terms of the findings of facts and matters of law. In which case, there was some, I think it was a month ago or a couple sessions ago, in which they ended up approving a pretty high residential density usage as well. I believe it. Anyway, I believe that one was related with the fact that they were donating land to the school or something like that, and so they couldn't use that as a basis. But anyway, that's about it. Have a good one. Bye bye.